Hey, I'm Theo Anest with Scott Fly Rod Company, sitting down here today with Duranglers to talk to you about our premium saltwater fly rod, the Sector. After winning both Best New Fly Rod and Best Overall New Product in show at IFTD 2019, there was obviously a lot written about this rod and a whole bunch of videos of bearded guys standing around talking about this rod shortly after winning those awards and the launch of this rod. However, not soon after this launch, a worldwide pandemic pretty much brought destination travel to a screeching halt. Well, for most of us anyway. So I'm fortunate to call Baja, Mexico home away from home. And on March 24th, 2020, I was literally the only passenger on a United flight from Denver to Cabo, where I walked through a completely empty airport upon arrival. Crazy, I know. Well, suffice to say, in the months that would follow, Sector and I became very closely acquainted. So rather than make yet another video about all the technical aspects of Sector, where I just sit here and talk about a fly rod, I thought I'd put together something that the pandemic hasn't really allowed ample opportunity for others to do. And that is to not just talk about what makes Sector unique, but actually show you firsthand what this rod can do. In this real-world Baja field test, I put Sector to the test against some of the baddest fish on the planet in some of the most harsh fishing conditions a fly rod should ever encounter. So as you watch my amateur hour production of spliced GoPro footage, there are two main characteristics of Sector that I want you to pay very close attention to. First, I want you to notice across a wide range of fishing applications how well this rod picks up large amounts of line and is able to quickly redirect the fly back to the fish for a second, third, or sometimes even fourth opportunity. This was certainly by design when we set out to make Sector. So in a perfect world, a fly rod would be one in which there was zero energy lost in transfer between your hand, the tip of the rod, and ultimately the fly. The truth is, we are nowhere near that. Nobody is. However, through some material-based advancements called carbon web that we use in Sector, we've gotten a little closer to that perfect rod. So what carbon web does is it hones in some of the energy vibrations that will get lost through the casting strokes and keeps them more focused. It counteracts torsional forces and ultimately gives you better tracking and power for longer line pickups and redirecting casts. In the real world, we aren't casting to stationary targets. Fish are always on the move. And when your fly doesn't end up where it needs to be, you don't have time a lot of times to strip in 50 feet of line before you're able to then pick up and recast. You need to be able to just pick up the fly and get it right back out there to give yourself another chance. The second thing I want you to notice is the durability of this rod, as I put some bends in various models of this rod that have me cringing even just going back and watching it, just bracing for impact, waiting for these rods to blow up. The added durability of this rod can also be attributed to carbon web, which helps to reduce, it's basically an outer webbing around the entire rod, and it helps to reduce the propagation of microfractures from stress or impact that can ultimately lead to rod failure in any other rod. So another advancement as it pertains to durability would be the use of these Cerakoil guides. So as you can see, let's get in front of the camera here, they are bendable, bend-proof, crush-proof, bomb-proof. So one thing a rod needs to be is durable, especially in a saltwater environment, and I think you're going to see very clearly that we were able to do that with Sector. In this first video I'm about to share, both the line pickup and durability of Sector are showcased very nicely. We were fishing offshore and had been fortunate to have already tugged on plenty of marlin earlier in the day. Towards the end of the day, the Dorado, or mahi-mahi, depending on where you're from, turned on from spotty to absolutely wide open. All the birds had Dorado under them, and we were having a blast throwing big poppers to them with 11 weights. As we slid under one group of birds, the Dorado were suddenly MIA, but instead there were about 10 pretty large striped marlin slashing through the bait, and there I was holding an 11 weight. I knew this could be trouble, but I just simply couldn't resist. An 11 weight is a strong rod, but it's certainly not meant to pull on 150 pound fish that can swim 55 miles an hour. Even so, I think the fact that this rod stood up to this test against a respectable size striped marlin, and the rod didn't explode into 1,000 pieces, speaks volumes to the durability that you can expect with your Sectors. Moving on to Dorado, where you will see the reloadability of Sector, as well as the rod's ability to still make, rather short casts and accurate casts in close ranges, which a lot of times faster rods can tend to struggle with if the tip isn't soft enough to allow you to cast off of it. To me, the beach environment is the ultimate test of rod versatility. 1 hour you may be fishing a long leader, intermediate line, and trying to make presentation casts much like you would to, say, a permit. And then an hour later, the wind picks up, you have waves crashing everywhere over your face, it's just chaos. And it really just turns into more a matter of basically just willing the fly to the fish with sinking lines and just, everything you can get just to get the fly off the beach is sometimes an accomplishment. And that's not even really where the work begins. So once you've actually tied into a rooster, unlike being in a boat where you can go chase the fish. When you're standing on sand with the ground beneath your feet, you can't go chase that fish. So that fish is going to run as far as both your tackle and you will allow it to. And then it's just a matter of grinding it back to you crank by crank until ultimately one of you wins the battle. And to do that, I found that oftentimes an 11 weight is a better tool for the job, especially with big roosters. And you'll see that Sector is more than up to the task of that. Standing on a paddleboard in casting is just a balancing act in itself, which isn't really the big problem. It's more a matter of the fact that one, the fish can see you from a mile away when you're standing up versus sitting. And then secondly, if the wind's blowing at all and you're on target to the fish, just a little bit of wind is going to drift you totally off course to where you can make a cast. So what I found is that the best way to fish from the paddleboard is to sit on the paddleboard. This keeps you lower to the water, keeps you out of the wind, so you're not getting blown around as much, and the fish don't see you as much. However, from a casting standpoint, anybody who's belly boated knows it presents its own unique challenges when you're that low to the water. So what you need is a rod that is able to pick up the line and get it into a powerful back cast without slapping behind you, causing the cast to fall apart. And for that reason, with the line pickup that Sector has, it makes it a great paddleboard rod or a kayak rod or a belly boat rod because it's just so powerful in getting the line off the water in front of you, aerializing it, and getting it into a back cast. Secondly, when it comes to durability, it is an absolute rolling catastrophe, clown show, call it whatever you want. Every time you hook a fish and try to land it from a paddleboard, when you're sitting and you have a 9-foot fly rod, trying to grab the leader, trying to grab this rather angry animal on the other end and bring it onto a paddleboard. It's just, it's a recipe for disaster. And the fact that I made it through an entire season, I'm going to really knock on some wood here because I feel a lot of it is probably just luck. But the fact that I made it through an entire year without breaking any of these rods speaks probably both to, like I said, a little bit of luck, but also some of the durability that has kind of been built inside a Sector throughout the rod.